I'm very honored today to have Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof executive. And I'm a little bit curious about some of the background behind Bulletproof executive. I know that you're heavily into diet and you got this thing about mycotoxins and stuff like that. But what did you do before you got into all this stuff?
You know, I've been a hacker for a lot of years. I had my first computer when I was 8. It was a K-Pro 2 before we even had DOS, much less Windows. So for a guy who's 40, I'd probably have a little bit more time spent online than average. Studied computer science. I actually helped to create the cloud computing stuff that you know about today. A company called Exodus Communications was the company that built 42 of the data centers we use today in the mid-90s. And my first product that I brought to market was a provision on-demand cloud computing service, very similar to infrastructure as a service you buy from Amazon today. So I spent much of my career doing that. I've been a venture capitalist for a brief period on Sand Hill Road. I've been an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. So I've had a very successful career. I have an MBA from Wharton. Along the way, though, I intentionally started hacking myself. The reason I was able to come to some of the conclusions I've come to is that when I was 26, I made $6 million at this company. So the ability to spend actually about $300,000 now. I usually say $250,000, but within the last year I've spent a lot more. So it's just been one of those things where I got all this knowledge and I have an unfair advantage, so I decided that the right thing to do was to put it out on the web, and that's why the Bulletproof diet's free, like all my content's free, and it works, and it works in a week. You can feel it. And my goal in the last 10 or so years after I lost the weight has really been all about what's going on up here. How do you make your brain work better? And it turns out when you do the things that make your body work better, it makes your brain work better. So that's been kind of the path I've been on. I'm really fortunate now that I have all these clients who I work with, not particularly on weight loss, although some of them I do, but it's more like, how do I outperform in all domains of life? And that includes looking good in the least amount of time. But that's just like a table stakes.
But you had mentioned that you were like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And you achieved all this success mentally even before you lost your weight, right?
You know, I struggled mentally. I had serious problems with brain fog. In fact, one of the things that started me on this path, when I was maybe 25, I was working at a company called 3Com, which is now, I think, a part of Dell. And 3Com was one of the pioneers in the networking business. And I was in the IT department, and I go into these meetings, and I come out, and I didn't know what happened in the whole meeting. I felt like I was a total zombie. And I went to the doctor. And this doctor was in Palo Alto Medical Foundation. And I said, something's wrong. He said, maybe it's your blood sugar. So I bought a blood sugar meter, which was kind of bulky back then. I'd stabbed myself lots of times, graphed my blood sugar. I said, dude, that's not it. He said, oh, maybe it's all in your head. Here's some Prozac. And I basically said this to him. And, and then I said, you know, vitamin C makes me feel better. And he said, you could die, you have to stop. And I'm like, at this time I've worked with some of the pioneers in the vitamin C field through the anti-aging nonprofit work I do. And I said, what about Linus Pauling? He goes, Linus who? and I looked him in the eyes and said, yeah, you know, 90 grams of vitamin C a day, Nobel Prize, that guy, you're fired. And I walked out of the doctor's office. I didn't pay him. They sent me to collections. I still didn't pay him. And I didn't see another doctor for 4 years. I'd do the research myself, and I'd spend as much money as I wanted to on anything I thought would help. So I went through a really large, like rapid experimental group just because I'm like, what's going to work? And how do I sort these things out?
That your experience is not too unlike mine.
Yeah.
I had really severe hand pain, and I went to the doctor once and he said, you know, I noticed that when I do heavy lifting, weight training, my hands don't hurt as much. And he says, oh, don't do that, it'll make your hands work. It's like, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's just like, and I call that advanced MD listening disorder. Anyway, you got into this nutrition thing. Now, you also sell a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
So you're selling coffee and cocoa and vanilla
and MCT oil and
Aniracetam, or
no, don't sell Aniracetam.
Oh, you don't sell it? Oh, you sell no. What was it that you had along that line?
I think there's a bunch of stuff. I have Alpha Brain now, which is from On It Labs, which I'm carrying on the site, which works really, really well. Kind of similar to Aniracetam. It turns out there's some, you can buy Aniracetam on Amazon, but there's some limitations on the ability to sell it in large amounts. So I highly recommend Aniracetam. I've been quoted in Rolling Stone and in a bunch of other basically media outlets talking about smart drugs. And Aniracetam's my number one, I take it every day kind of one.
Really?
It's not one that I carry.
Now, you wrote an article about why you have a modafinil deficiency. So do you take modafinil?
I took modafinil, which is basically the drug from Limitless. It's the closest drug we have to that movie. I took it every day for 8 years. And it used to just cause a huge benefit in my cognitive function. But I don't take it on a daily basis anymore. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Actually, 3 of them I can think of. The first one is I went on the Joe Rogan show. And a lot of people said, Dave, all of your benefits come because you took the smart drug. I'm like, okay. That's not the case, clearly. But I'll do an experiment. I'll stop taking it and I'll see what happens. And I would say 50% of my performance improvement came from modafinil. When I first started this stuff, it was a lifesaver. It was magic. And now I can take it or leave it, but the reasons I can take it or leave it are, number one, Bulletproof coffee. It is such a cognitive boost when you make it without the toxins, with the upgraded beans, and you use the MCT oil. MCT oil, at least in a mouse study, increases brain metabolism, and I can feel the difference in how I focus. And so can, like, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000 people who have it for breakfast every day now. Like, it's become big.
It's been shown to be a positive benefit for Alzheimer's victims.
MCT definitely has in some studies, and I have an interview with Dr. Mary Newport where she talks about what she did with her
That's what I
husband
was
from her
thinking
book. It's profound what it does, even for like pro fighters now. UFC fighters are calling me and saying, hey, like a guy recently, Eddie, I'm blanking on his last name. I don't want to butcher it, but I'll have him on the site shortly.
Oh, you can send me an email. I'll put it in the
Yeah, there you
show
go.
notes.
I'll do that. And Eddie was like, Dave, I just cut 12 pounds. And she said, this is before I'm trying to cut weight. Now I'm going to make weight without having to dehydrate myself. Like, this is amazing. And I lost 12 pounds like in 7 days or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So it really helps people to perform better, whether or not they're trying to deal with a health problem, or whether they're just trying to like feel optimal. And it turns out even people who aren't doing very well, don't feel very well, they really want to feel optimal. But even people who are at what we consider a normal level of health, most of them have no idea what they're capable of. So for me, modafinil helped me see what I was capable of, even from like a mental function, meditation focus, from a physical, just how I feel. And I got used to feeling that way. And I think that's one of the reasons that my brain's kind of wired for that. The other reason that I think I can go off modafinil and just have this kind of focus is that I use this upgraded focus brain trainer, which is a feedback device. I spend a lot of time trying to train my nervous system, the parts of the nervous system that are faster than our conscious brain.
I think I read about that. What do you call that?
Upgraded focus brain trainer. And it's a band you put on your head that shines a light in to your brain, and then you look on your computer screen and you play this little dorky video game where you fly forward when you move blood to the front of your brain. And that kind of feedback technology has really helped me just have like amazing laser focus.
How much does that kind of technology cost?
It's about $1,000. But here's the thing, you use it for 5 minutes a day and there's no limit on the number of users. So it's like, put it in the office. Like, it's not an expensive technology when you look at the number of people who could use this thing throughout the day. It also doesn't require electrodes and sticky goop. Some of the stuff I have, like the feedback trainer that I use, I've got to like put electrodes in my hair right here, and you get like little like seagull poop looking stuff. It's not so nice. It only takes 33 minutes a day, and it works really well. But it's messy compared to slap this little superhero looking blue headband on, and then you're good to go.
Yeah. Take a look at the camera. Now, this is what Dave Asprey looks like without all those electrodes.
Yeah. This is just me. I've got an implanted one though.
So now you saw it, and by the way, that was a pretty sneaky trick. Now I'm going to have to buy upgraded coffee. I had never tasted it before. I figured, it was really expensive. I'm just going to put that off. And now I've tasted it, and now damn it, I'm going to have to buy some.
Here's the trick on upgraded coffee. I created this whole process to make the green coffee without any toxin formation allowed along the way, and then we lab test the stuff. So the beans are truly a different thing. They cost about $2 more for the small bag than Starbucks charges, for their higher end coffee or Peet's coffee. So it's not meant to be ridiculously priced. It's as fair as I can make it, but that's for the small bag. If you want to get the 5-pound bag, the price per pound is in line with what you'll pay at any store for a pound of good quality coffee. So I don't really make a ton on that, but the people who really get a huge change in life quality because of avoiding the stuff that can be in coffee, for them it's there as a regular, meant to be as affordable as I can make it thing.
Well, to kind of shift subjects a little bit, because I know that you have to run off and you got to play teddy bear with your young one.
3-year-old, my 6-year-old. Yep. Yeah, we're gonna go make their own teddy bear.
I wanted to talk with you a little bit about sleep.
Right.
You're big on sleep, and I've seen some devices advertised on your site. It was Zeos and some other things. And I have a sleep disorder. I've been a CPAP user since about 1990, 89 time frame, and I basically wouldn't be here if I had done that. I'm a much lower prescription now that I've lost about 100 pounds.
That helps.
But I still need to lose about 50, as you can tell. But I'm working on it again.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to hear what you have to say about general sleep disorder, improvement of sleep in general, and so forth.
It turns out that the number one request I get from my coaching clients is help me fix my sleep. It happens first. I get entrepreneurs really successful. They don't sleep very well, and the two problems are I can't go to sleep or I can't stay asleep, and sometimes there's apnea involved. Apnea is a medical condition, and they have CPAP machines and all. But what I recommend for people with apnea, aside from get rid of inflammation as much as you can, and the Bulletproof diet at its core is about turning off everything we can find that causes inflammation. So the Bulletproof diet, if it turns out inflammation in the body, helps with all sorts of stuff you wouldn't expect it to help with. But the amazing thing is that the alignment of your jaw is a huge contributor to apnea.
My jaw is too narrow.
Yeah.
And they determined that with that barium swallowing while they did a full motion X-ray, and they said, hey, the opening in the back of your throat is about that big, and it ought to be that big.
So what if your lower jaw did this? That would actually change that. So there's a splint you can sleep with at night.
Yeah, but my little brother actually got one, and he said it helped some, but I haven't actually tried that one.
So you see where my jaw is right now?
Mm-hmm.
My jaw used to look something like this. I'll try my best.
Mm-hmm.
My face just falls like this. So my jaw's a 1/2 inch forward from where it used to be. Didn't have surgery. What I did is I went in with a metal braces, and I expanded my upper palate. It took about 1.5 years, and we basically pushed it out, and then my lower jaw, it gave it room for it to move forward, and then for about
you didn't get TMJ in the process?
I actually got rid of TMJ. I didn't really have clicking and all that, but I had enormous amounts of strain in my jaw. I was unaware of them. But just for me to chew, because my front teeth were hitting, I had to yank my jaw back and up. And when you do that, it not only contributes to apnea, but it causes stress right here. And right here, aside from your jaw, is your trigeminal nerve that runs basically throughout your nervous system. So for me, every time I chew, I was triggering my fight or flight response over and over and over. So I wore a splint basically whenever I was awake, even when I was eating, that raised the height of my back teeth. And even now I have a cap about 2 or 3 millimeters on both of my molars in the back, and my jaw's very carefully aligned. When I did that, it totally lowered the useless stress that I was experiencing just from chewing. This is an unconscious thing. It was just happening. It's the way I was built. Why was I built this way? Because my mom and my grandmother ate gluten and cooked milk, which we know crowds the lower jaw, moves the jaw back and up, creates trigeminal problems, and even causes a lack of fusion in some of the vertebrae in the spine and a flattening of the upper spine. So the lower lack of fusion, upper flattening. I've got those too. This is an epigenetic effect. This is why I wrote the Better Baby book, because this sort of stuff, it takes 1 or 2 generations. I'm pretty confident my grandkids won't have this problem. Whether my kids will have this problem, I don't know, but it has a lot to do with what my mom ate and what my wife's mom ate.
That's really fascinating, because one of the problems I had with my teeth is my lower incisors. I only have 3 now because one of them grew behind the other, and there wasn't enough room in the jaw.
That is tied to your apnea. I would bet 100% on that. So what do? You see these kind of craniofacial dentists who aren't surgeons, but they realign the stuff. And
so how much did that cost you?
about $2,000. But
that's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, for getting rid of apnea, I'd pay $2,000 in a heartbeat.
Okay, Dr. Jennings, he's a good friend of mine, Dwight Jennings in Alameda, California. I need him on the podcast. He has gone through, he's helped all kinds of kids with autism, all these people turn down their nervous system stress by aligning the jaw. He's kind of a master of doing this. He's done his entire career. But he says, Dave, I have patients who come in, and for him, they're patients, he's a dentist. They come in with apnea. He makes this special splint they sleep with. I sleep with one too. It keeps my jaw from falling back when I sleep. And he said they come in with apnea, and they come in, the next visit 4 weeks later, and they have to turn their sleep apnea machine on to go to sleep because they don't sleep well without the sound. But it's not on their face anymore because they don't have apnea anymore. Literally, he's turning it off in a day. But
really?
The trick isn't just moving the jaw forward a little bit. Like, you can buy a commercial sort of general splint that helps, but if you get one that's made specific to the angle of your jaw, it depends, this angle and everything else, it's called the trigeminal alignment of the jaw. So for me, that was actually a pretty good performance boost. And when I look at people, especially people I'm coaching, I look at them on Skype, I look at their bite, and if they're experiencing like stress problems and the normal things don't work, and they've got a lower jaw that's crowded, or the lower jaw's back, they don't have the square chin. I didn't used to have a square chin. I don't even look like I did 15 years ago. That's because I rewired my face without surgery.
Oh, that is really fascinating. I'll have to get together with you and see if maybe your doctor can refer somebody in Texas.
Sure. In fact, I need to do a podcast with him anyway. It's a good excuse to reach out.
Yeah. Okay. Super. And I like to be aware of when that occurs, so I
Sure.
can listen to it.
I'll hook you up with it.
So now you're also selling a line of stuff.
Yep.
You're doing the Bulletproof coffee and the upgraded MCT oil.
Right.
Now I do. I've done coffee, and I put butter in my coffee, and I'll typically take a couple of tablespoons of that, and a couple of tablespoons of coconut oil, and a couple of tablespoons of MCT oil, and some cocoa, and a dash of cream, and some xanthan gum.
Right.
So that it'll stay in suspension a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll blend that all up in my Vitamix.
Right.
And
Nice and frothy that way.
it is pretty good, but damn, that stuff you put together today was so much better. So, like I said, I'm going to have to get that. Now, you mentioned the benefit of your MCT oil. You said yours was better than the stuff that you could find elsewhere?
Well, if you're getting just coconut oil, typical coconut oil is around 60% MCT oil, so that's a big part of selling coconut oil. What they don't tell you is that there's 4 lengths of MCT oil that are in coconut oil, and that the most active ones are the ones that we've got in upgraded MCT oil, which is the 8 and 10 length. And that's only 15% of coconut oil. So if you're going to get your MCTs from coconut oil, you need 6 tablespoons to equal 1 tablespoon of MCT. I don't know about you, but I can handle 6 tablespoons of fat without basically filling my pants.
I can handle it.
Yeah, but
I built up to it.
Right, but if you want to do 2 tablespoons of MCT, which is more in line with what I do, it's just in breakfast, or not really breakfast. Bulletproof coffee is all I have for breakfast, but basically you're not going to be able to get the levels where you want them. And MCT oil, it makes you feel energetic. It really has a difference.
I noticed that it gives me a cognitive boost.
Huge. Yeah.
And I've tested it in a couple of different ways, and it doesn't feel like I have a cognitive boost, but I think faster.
In fact, you could probably measure it. There's a website, quantify-mind.com, and it's free, but 3-minute test in the morning or at night to see.
Okay, I'll need to put that in the show notes as well.
It's worth it.
I'll be in contact with you after this.
Of course.
And we'll get together the show notes before I publish it.
Here's why I know about that site. I'm friends with the guy who created it, but we put together an institutional review board approved study of upgraded coffee beans versus a mass market coffee. And we had a bunch of people go out and basically for a week or 2 drink upgraded, a week or 2 drink the other stuff with a washout period. And it was designed by a Stanford researcher, the study was. We haven't published the full results yet. I'm in the process of getting them all written up and all that stuff. But what we do, we ended up showing that on 6 of 9 measures of executive function, there's a huge difference between upgraded coffee and normal coffee.
Okay, so you're going to have to fill me in on the 9 measures there and all that. We can do that because I know that you're short on time.
All right,
and all
sure.
that. And matter of fact, it's probably you got about 10 minutes to go get ready and do your thing with the teddy bears.
I'm hoping they let us do bacon stuffed teddy bears because it's a custom teddy bear program for kids.
I do appreciate your willingness to come talk with me, and
You got it.
like I said, I'm very honored to have the Bulletproof executive. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.